Arkansas Weather Network meteorologist James Bryant joins us now. James, great to have you with us. Arkansas saw its first tornado of the season this past weekend, an EF2. What are your thoughts on this overall setup and the start we've seen to this springtime severe weather season?
Yeah, thanks for having me. We had that tornado early Saturday morning. It was just after 5 a.m. in southwest Arkansas. It actually hit a mobile home. And that was another one of those, like Arkansas was not in the highest risk area, but I describe it to people as being a needle in a haystack type event for us. It's very well within the realm of possibility that we see a tornado over the next day or so, whether that's tonight or tomorrow with the storms moving through Arkansas. But that doesn't mean that there's no risk. In fact, I think it's even more important that people pay attention because your first impression when you hear that you're in a low severe weather risk is to not pay attention. So we ask that people, no matter how that is, have a way to get warnings, because when that tornado warning happens for you in the middle of the night, your phone and those alerts that you get could save your life. You know, this fast start to the severe weather season, right on schedule for Arkansas. You know, we just went through our longest drought of the last 30 years without a severe weather report. We did not have a severe weather report from mid-October until early or late February and early March. It was almost 6 straight months with 0 severe weather reports. Very rare for us to do that here. It had to come back eventually, and here we're doing about a week of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, roaring back now, right? You mentioned right on schedule for you, a little bit ahead of schedule with what we're seeing farther off to the north. What are your thoughts on that? Very much like what you were describing there in Arkansas is like what we saw play out Friday in southern parts of Michigan, where the overall probability wasn't that high, but the ceiling was quite high, and that's what ended up playing out. What are your thoughts as we move through this latest event now?
Well, it's kind of unfortunate. What a setup for that higher risk area that's up in northern Illinois. You know, you've got instability levels that are really just unheard of for this time of year, and everything just kind of seems to be perfectly coming together, that if you can get a supercell up there, you're going to get some intense tornadoes. That's when you talk about those F3s or greater. And that's pretty rare, you know, just on a normal occurrence. But for that far north, this early in the season, that's quite something, you know, and it's on this type of day where you really hope that there's some type of failure mode where it doesn't come together, because it's these type of intense tornadoes that seem to always have the highest impact on life.
That's a great point. And we're looking at some of these new products from the Storm Prediction Center and even the legacy probability ones. When we're talking about in some of these places where we haven't had a level 4 risk for Indiana and Illinois, you have to go back to the very end of last springtime severe weather season. So it's, I don't want to say out of practice for a lot of folks, because in an isolated sense, we had terrible consequences already. What is your main message, though, for folks right there in Arkansas? As you said, it's kind of an extended hazard here this evening, tonight, and then renewed into tomorrow.
Well, you know, just from the last week of severe weather that we've had, we've already had several tornadoes that have produced fatalities across several different states. And it just kind of underscores the importance of paying attention. If you get a tornado warning, making sure that you move to an interior room, getting out of mobile homes, getting off the road. Those are 2 really big things, because when the weather turns bad, I think everybody just kind of, at least in my region, just expects it. Maybe not so much further towards the north, but they just live with it. And sometimes they grow complacent and don't want to seek shelter or think it's not going to happen to them. But it's very important to just remain weather aware, be aware of your surroundings, and especially for overnight events like what we may see tonight into very early Wednesday, just kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening with the weather in case there's a tornado warning or 2, and in case there's an actual tornado that occurs. You know, our only tornado so far this year was that one in southwest Arkansas, and it was an EF2, 5 a.m. in the morning, a strong tornado. And that right there is the most dangerous kind of tornado, because it often strikes when people are sleeping or may not have adequate access to warning. So that's been our message, you know, even though it's not a high threat for our region, it's mainly to the west and to the north. We want everyone paying attention just in case something happens.
Yeah, great points, James. As you said, it's kind of human nature. When you look at some of those maps, your eye is immediately drawn to the highest threat. But if there's any threat issued for your area, it's for a reason, and you need to pay attention, particularly in a setup like this where the ceiling is so high. That's meteorologist with the Arkansas Weather Network, James Bryant. James, great to chat with you this afternoon on Fox Weather. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You bet.